guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be working on one of the easiest specimens or plants, as you would say, to create a bonsai. So if you're beginning to find interest in the bonsai, what I highly suggest you to do is to work on a plant similar to this one. This is actually a juniper, and I find it to be one of the easiest plants to begin with. A few reasons why I believe that this is a good starter for those who are beginning to find an interest in bonsai is because they sustain really harsh winters and also summers. In addition to that, you can find this type of plant almost anywhere. You can go anywhere, like your Home Depots, your Lowe's, or even some Walmarts carry this plant, and they do sell for really cheap. I bought this actually at my local Home Depot for $7, and yeah, it's something we can start off with. So just like everything else, what I like to do is to, when you're picking out the trees like from a local nursery, is that you want to be careful in making sure that you do have a nice product to work with. And by means is that you have really nice long branches, the foliage is nice, and the health of the tree seems nice as well. In this occasion, right over here, we find two trunks. I believe that this is two junipers right here instead of one. So if we can, what we're going to do is that we're going to split them and we're going to put them in individual pots. Hopefully we can come up with two different styles for this project. So you want to remove the tree from its pot, and as I can see, it has nice healthy roots. We want to remove the dirt from the bottom to the top and figure out if there's any trimming that needs to be done. What I find it helpful is that if you do water your tree days prior to your work, you're going to have soft, nice soil that can be easily removed. So far the roots seem to be in a healthy condition. There's a lot of roots coming in here. As I continue to remove the roots, noticing that the two trunks, they're actually tight together. You want to be careful when removing the soil from the plant and not breaking any of the roots right here. There you go. So here we have one, just like that. And here we have the second one. So what I believe is that this one right here was taking over more than the other one, and now that this one has a place for its own, it should be easier to grow. The next step that we want to take right here is to prune back some of these roots, and what you can easily do is lay them down and just trim around to a proper length. Just like that. What this will do is that it will start training the roots to grow in this motion like this. I picked this pot at a local nursery. This is a plastic pot, but it's actually really nice. And what I'm going to be using this is as a training pot. So these trees are still too small, and I feel like they're not ready for a bonsai pot yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just place it in something like this. The next step to this video is finding some wire. This wire, what you're going to do is that you're going to place it in one of the holes, just like this. It's a loop. And you're going to bend them back to prevent them from falling back. Just like that. Some people like to use the same soil if it's not cluttered with a bunch of roots. But you can also find some nice potting mix. I feel like since we're just training these little trees to become future bonsai, is that I'm just going to continue using some of the dirt first. And if you want, you can also use another potting mix, just like the one I used previously for my forest. So you want to add a nice layer where the roots can be anchored. Now that we have the pot ready, what we can do is go on to finding the front of the tree and the back of the tree. This tree right here is actually too clean, I would say. So at this point, since it's still pretty young, it's easy to choose the front or the back. So in this case, I will be using what it's facing me as the back and what's facing you guys as the front. Just like that. I'm going to put the tree in place, and those wires, I'm going to bring them back in just to tie up this tree. All you have to do is bring them together and slowly twist the wires at the opposite side together to anchor the tree to the pot. Now we're doing the opposite side, the one in the back and the one in the front, just like this. Bringing them together, pushing down that tree. Now that the tree it's secure, we will then proceed in adding more mix. There you go. Now that we're done doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my shears and I'll start pruning back some of those branches so that we can continue having some good growth here. You can always use the method of pinching, or you can always use your sharp shears. Just like that. What I'm going to do right here too is that I'm going to pinch some of the new growth back just to see if I can come up with new branches, and also to slow down the growth rate of this tree. Alright, so the next step right here will be getting some of my wire and just anchoring it right under the pot, just like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to twist it around the trunk of the tree, always being careful with the branches. And as we continue the process of wiring, you want to put your thumb right where there is that pressure so that you don't damage the branch of the tree. And for this tree, what I want to do is that I want to have this branch coming right up, a bit of movement, just like that. And this one right here is just going to follow off, and we're going to be bringing these branches down with thinner wire. So I find this branch to be in a really nice position right there, and what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to leave it as is. So the next step after wiring that main branch is going to be pruning some of the branches so that we can find a nice shape to it. The way that we find out which branches we get to keep and which ones we get to remove is by simply removing those branches that are either too long, we're going to be able to we're going to prune back, and those that are too weak, we're also going to prune back. The next step right here, now that we're done cleaning the branches off, is going to be finding some thin wire This wire would actually help us obtain the nice design that we want for the tree. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start from the bottom to the top, and I'm going to start off with this branch right over here. Working with young trees, you have to be really careful because you don't want to damage any delicate branches. So I would always suggest to use some really thin wire when it comes to this. I don't find the need to use thick wire here. So what I'm going to be doing is that either I'm going to use two thin wires and just, bend them together to create a slightly stronger one, and just go off of that. Once again, bending two branches with one wire. And I'm going to bring back one of those branches and the other one just slightly forward, like that. So I'm going to point it down just a little bit, and I'm going to continue working my way to the top. And this one's at the top, just going to cut back a little bit. You always want to be careful and finding whether you're going to cut the whole entire branch or just the needle. You never want to cut the needles, because if you do, what you'll be doing is that you're going to dry those needles up, and then you're going to have brown needles instead of having beautiful green needles. So if you're going to cut, make sure that you either pinch the whole entire needle or simply cut back the branch. So since I'm training this tree for future reference, whoever the future owner of this tree would be, my plan is to continue letting this branch right here grow and just have a smaller one growing on this side, and then same thing, have this small triangular appearance as the larger one would be. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to cut this one off back a bit more, and I'm going to leave this one as the new leading branch. Eventually I would let it grow just about right here, and then this one I'm gonna let it continue growing to reach its peak. So I'm going to cut back this one just about right there, turn the tree around, and since I'm lowering these branches, anything facing down or anything that is big, I would be cutting back. So that's it for the first one. The second tree that we're going to be working on is still right here. So what we want to do with this one right here, since it's actually a little bit bigger, we want to clean off some of those branches that we're not going to end up needing. Branches that are too close to the trunk, and branches that are actually too next to each other, like this one right over here. Same thing as always, what you want to do is that you want to analyze the tree, figure out which of the branches are useful and which ones are not. If you have trouble doing so, what you can also do is that you can simply grab a piece of paper, try to trace the strongest branches, and then try to come up with a design for the tree. One of the other things that you need to do is that don't work against the tree. You have to work with it. So whatever's given is what you need to use in order to come up with the product. If you try to use a specimen like this one, and then you find another one online that you're trying to mimic, it's going to cause a lot of stress, and eventually you're going to end up killing it. So rule of thumb is, when you're looking for a tree at a nursery or somewhere else, make sure that the tree has something that catches your attention, something that makes it different from all the others. Don't try to make the tree look like something that you see in the that you've seen in a video. Don't make it look like an image that you've seen online. If the tree has the same characteristics, then by all means go ahead. It's going to take years, but don't try to do it just from one day to another. So for this one, what I'm going to do is, now that I see this nice little branch growing right here, and it has some really nice new growth, what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the curvature of the tree, just like this. And by means, I would be removing the bottom branches just right over here and here, just like that. That way I can expose this branch right here, and we're gonna have almost like the same thing, a sister branch. But this one is going to be a little bit different, since this one's going to come right over here, and eventually I'm going to want to have a falling down cascade over this one. So we're going to start by removing these branches. I want to use my concave shear so that I can get rid of these like that. Oh, I would also be getting rid of the ones from the side here. Here. Right here. There's some nice dead wood there. I'm gonna be cutting the ones all the way at the bottom as well. This one right there too. So at this point I removed a significant amount of foliage. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it like that, and eventually continue to use this branch. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to face this one up just like this, and eventually these right over here would create a nice little pad right here, and the other one would continue the same silhouette as it has right now and fall off right over here. This branch right here is also serving as a way of thickening this trunk, as well as this little ones over here too. So as soon as the trunk is at a thickness that I desired, I'm going to be letting this ones go, and I'm going to be pruning back to stop the growth right over here and continue the growth right at the top. So for now, in order to stop the growth right at the bottom, I'm going to be pruning back some of that new growth to a certain point. This would also create some new branches that would eventually help create a nicer pad. This one right there can go away. And I'll also prune back just a little bit here to at least make it look a little bit cleaner. So what I'm going to do, just like on the previous tree, what we want to do is we're going to place it slightly to the side, not necessarily right at the front. But before we do this, I do want to wire it, since I feel like it will be a whole lot easier. So now that we have this wire, what I want to do is that I'm going to measure it just a little bit below so that it can anchor nicely. And just like that, and continue my way to the top. Alright, so now that I'm done wiring, what I did was that I added a little bit more of a curvature starting from the bottom up to the top. As the top continues to grow, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to continue adding more wire and having that curvature right about here, and then just fall onto the sides. This eventually would grow off to the sides and just fill in a little more of the gap right here. However, I feel like for the meantime, we can actually just let this tree rest in this little training pot until it's time to give it a little bit more of room around here. Alright, and so with this being done, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the potting. So we're going to grab our wire, just like we did with the last one, put it through those holes. Now that we have that wire there, we continue to add a layer of that mix. I'm also going to mix it in with new mix, adding a little bit of a mountain right here, and then we would tie up that tree to the pot. Put those two ends of the wire together and twist in place. Now that it's all secured, we continue to add more dirt. Being careful, of course, that we don't damage that lower branch. After adding the fertilizer, I would add another thin layer of soil to cover the fertilizer. But what I'm going to do also is that I'm going to leave a nice edge so that when I water them, the water doesn't spill out and it just stays in the pot. Right there. Clean off those edges of the pot. There. And let me just continue finishing this one right off. Get those roots covered nicely. We don't want to expose them. Alright folks, so that concludes the video. We were actually able to create not one, but two little bonsai out of that juniper that we purchased at the nursery. I hope that this video has given you the basic information of where to find the material and how to create your very own first bonsai. Like I said, junipers are a really good material for those who are beginning to find interest in bonsai for the given reasons. They're capable of sustaining harsh winters, harsh summers, and also they're really flexible when it comes to wiring. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or thoughts, go ahead and comment down below. We'll see you next time.